I sat staring at my phone, reading the message again and again. Every word felt like a knife. The blue text bubble lit up the screen like a flashing sign telling me I wasn't wanted. You're not welcome at the birthday party. My wife doesn't want you here. It was from my son, Robert, my little boy I once rocked through pneumonia when he was 6, staying up for 3 nights straight just to keep him breathing. The teenager I worked double shifts for so he could go to that fancy private school where he met Vanessa. The man I gave my house to as a wedding gift 5 years ago. My fingers shook as I set the phone down on the kitchen table, the same old oak table I'd carried into their house when I moved into the tiny guest apartment in the garage. I looked out the window and saw delivery trucks already pulling up with decorations and supplies for my grandson. Tyler's 7th birthday party, the party I wasn't allowed to attend. Over the past 5 years, I had slowly watched my place in their lives shrink. First, I was Robert's mom. Then I felt more like the housekeeper. Now, I was treated like a burden they wished would disappear. Last Thanksgiving, they sat me at the kids' table. At Christmas, the gift I bought for Tyler wasn't even opened. Just 2 months ago, Vanessa reorganized my little apartment while I was at book club throwing away 40 years of photo albums without even asking me. But this text, this was worse. This was public humiliation. This was my son telling me I couldn't even celebrate my grandson's birthday. I picked up my cup of tea, but my hand shook so badly the liquid rippled inside. In 3 hours, the house and yard I had poured my heart into planting every flower, every bush would be full of people laughing, eating cake, and celebrating, and me. I'd be sitting alone in this small apartment, listening through the walls. The emptiness I felt reminded me of the day my husband, Richard, died 15 years ago. He was only 53, a sudden heart attack, no warning at all. Back then, at least, I still had Robert. I still had purpose. And I still had this house that Richard and I worked so hard to pay off. I set down my tea, walked over to my filing cabinet, and pulled open the second drawer. In the very back, I found the folder I was looking for. Inside was the property deed transfer I'd signed 5 years ago. I could still hear the attorney's cautious voice. Margaret, are you sure about this? The clause lets you take it back if needed. But I had smiled and said, Robert is my son. This is his wedding gift. I remembered Vanessa's grin when I handed them the keys. How she immediately started planning renovations, as if my spotless home of 30 years wasn't good enough. I sat down at my computer, a gift from my sister in Chicago, and logged into my banking account. After giving the house to Robert, I had taken my retirement money and, with my sister's advice, started investing. Slowly at first, then with more confidence as I learned. What began as a hobby turned into a passion, and then a real talent. The number on the screen stared back at me. $1.2 million. Nobody knew. Not Robert, definitely not Vanessa, who made snide remarks about supporting me whenever she thought I could hear. I pulled out the deed revocation forms my lawyer had prepared months ago. Back when Vanessa first hinted that I should move into a retirement home, I had kept them tucked away, never believing I would actually use them. Until today, I picked up my pen and signed my name. My hand didn't shake this time. The hollow feeling inside me was gone, replaced with something stronger. Resolve, determination, the kind of strength that comes when you finally realize love doesn't always mean staying quiet, it means standing up for yourself. No, I wouldn't be at Tyler's birthday party today, but soon, I would be hosting a gathering of my own, and this time, I would choose the guest list. I took a deep breath and called my attorney. Margaret, she said with a little laugh in her voice, I've been waiting for this call for 3 years. I can file the papers on Monday. By Wednesday, the house will be back in your name. Robert and Vanessa won't even know until it's official. Unless you tell them, of course. It's just between you and the county recorder's office. Your son gave you conditional ownership. You're just taking back what's yours. I glanced out the window. The main house was already decorated with balloons, cars filling the driveway, kids laughing. There's something else, I whispered, even though no one could hear. I want to sell all of my stocks, every last one. When I hung up, I changed into my gardening clothes. Out in the yard, no one would think twice about seeing me. Working in the garden was the one thing Vanessa still allowed me to do. So that afternoon, I knelt in the dirt, trimming roses I'd planted 20 years ago, pretending that was enough. From where I crouched, I could see the guests arriving for the birthday party I wasn't invited to. My neighbor Elaine strolled by with her grandson and waved cheerfully. Margaret, aren't you coming inside for the party? She called. I forced a smile. Just finishing some gardening first, I said. though the truth stung. Through the big bay windows, I watched Vanessa greet everyone at the door, her perfect blonde hair bouncing as she laughed like she belonged on a magazine cover. Robert stood beside her, stiff and uneasy as always. And then I saw Tyler, my sweet boy, his face glowing as his friends poured in. My throat tightened, and I bent back over the roses, pretending to focus on the petals. That night, after the house grew quiet, I sat in my little garage apartment, making lists. Patricia, my sister, was flying in from Chicago the next day. I had a bank appointment Monday afternoon, and Diana, my lawyer, would file the property papers first thing Monday morning. By Wednesday, everything would change. Sunday morning, I kept two routines. I made blueberry pancakes for Robert, Vanessa, and Tyler, just like always. Tyler's favorite. No one mentioned the party or the fact that I hadn't been there. Robert ate in silence, avoiding my eyes. Vanessa scrolled through her phone, occasionally flashing property listings to Robert. Then Tyler looked up, cheeks full of pancake. "Grandma, why weren't you at my party?" The kitchen froze. Robert stared at his plate. Vanessa's hand tightened on her coffee mug. "Tyler, we talked about this," she said sharply. "Grandma wasn't feeling well." I set the spatula down and looked at my grandson. "I wanted to be there more than anything, sweetheart. I'm sorry I missed it. You can come to my next party," he said simply, with the innocent kindness of a "Yes," I told him softly, thinking of Patricia's plane ticket in my pocket. "Things will be very different by then." Monday morning, I left before the house stirred. Patricia met me at the downtown hotel I had secretly booked. We hugged tightly in the lobby, both of us holding on longer than usual. "You ready for this?" she asked, searching my face. "I've been ready for years," I admitted. "I just didn't realize it until now." By noon, Diana had the property transfer in motion. By 2 o'clock, Patricia and I sat in the office of my investment manager, Bradley Reynolds. "Are you sure, Mrs. Wilson?" he asked carefully. "That's a lot of money to move into cash." "I'm sure," I said firmly, thinking of Robert's cruel text. "It's time I put this money to use." By 5 o'clock, the transfer was done. On paper, I was $1.2 million richer. By Wednesday, I would once again be the sole owner of the house. Richard and I had spent 30 years paying for. I didn't go back to the garage apartment that night, or the next. No one called, no one checked on me. Wednesday morning came. As Robert and Vanessa left for work and Tyler climbed onto the school bus, Patricia and I sat waiting in our hotel room. At 9:17, my phone rang. "It's done," Diana said. "The house is yours, Margaret." I closed my eyes as relief and determination washed over me. "What now?" Patricia asked. "Now," I said, holding up the certified letter Diana had prepared. "We deliver the news." We drove back and parked across the street, watching the mail carrier set the envelope gently against the front door. It sat there, quiet and ordinary, but to me it felt like a ticking bomb. "You don't have to do this in person," Patricia murmured, squeezing my hand. "We could go back to the hotel, wait for their call." I shook my head. "No. I need to see their faces. I've spent 5 years watching Vanessa's smug smile. I want to see this one, right on time." Robert's Silverado pulled into the driveway. Vanessa's red BMW was right behind him. They always came home together on Wednesdays, his early day at the firm, her late afternoon showings. I watched Robert loosen his tie as he stepped out, spot the envelope, and pick it up curiously. He waited for Vanessa before unlocking the door. "That's our cue," I said, straightening the navy blazer I'd splurged on last year, but never dared to wear until today. That morning, I put on my diamond earrings for the first time in years, Richard's last gift to me before he passed. Patricia and I walked across the street slowly, every step measured. Strangely, I wasn't nervous, my hands didn't shake, and my heart didn't pound. I felt calmer than I had in years. I rang the doorbell of my own house. Robert opened the door. His face was pale, the letter trembling in his hand. From inside, I could already hear Vanessa's voice, sharp with anger. "This can't be legal. She can't just." Her words stopped when she saw me standing there. "Hello, Robert." "Vanessa," I said evenly. "May we come in?" Robert stepped back without a word. Vanessa appeared behind him, her makeup flawless, but unable to hide the rage in her eyes. She waved the letter at me. "What is this? Some kind of joke?" "It's no joke," I said, stepping inside with Patricia. "The house is back in my name, as of 9:17 this morning." "You can't do this," Vanessa snapped. "We've lived here for 5 years. We've made improvements. You can do this when there's a contingency clause in the transfer." Another voice cut in. Diana had arrived, just as we'd planned. She stepped forward, calm, and professional. Mrs. Wilson included the clause when she gifted the property. It gives her the right to reclaim it at any time. Robert finally spoke, his voice barely more than a whisper. You planned this all along. No, I said, locking eyes with him. What I planned was to give you a home to build your family in a place filled with love and respect. Instead, you turned it into a place where I wasn't even welcome at my own grandson's birthday party. Vanessa turned to Robert, her voice sharp. Call your lawyer. She can't just throw us out. We have rights. Actually, Diana interrupted, setting her briefcase on the entry table, as outlined in the notice. Mrs. Wilson is giving you 60 days to leave. That's 45 more than the law requires. She's also willing to reimburse you for any documented improvements. This is insane. Vanessa spat, all because you weren't invited to a child's party. How petty can you be? I felt Patricia stiffen beside me, ready to snap back, but I placed a hand on her arm. My voice was steady when I answered. No, Vanessa. The party was just the final straw. For 5 years, I've watched you erase me from this family. I've slept in a garage while you redecorated the bedroom I shared with my husband for 30 years. I've been pushed aside at holidays, ignored at dinners, treated like I was nothing more than a burden. I'm Robert's mother. I'm Tyler's grandmother, and I will not be erased. I turned to Robert, his face crumpled into something between shame and grief. Mom, he whispered. I didn't know about the text. Vanessa sent it from my phone while I was in the shower. I would never. But you didn't stop it either, I said quietly. You saw I wasn't at the party. You didn't call. You didn't check on me. You let it happen, Robert, just like you've let everything else happen. The silence was heavy. You have 60 days, I said finally. I'll be staying at a hotel until then. I moved toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Robert, tell Tyler I still have his birthday present. He can open it when he visits me at my new place. The first week after that was strangely quiet. No angry calls, no legal threats, no visit from Robert, just silence. Patricia stayed with me at the hotel for 3 days before heading back to Chicago, making me promise to call her every day. They're in shock, Diana told me when I called her, worried about the silence. They're talking to lawyers, but every attorney is telling them the same thing. The contract is airtight. You did nothing wrong. And morally, I asked softly, surprising myself. Diana chuckled gently. Margaret, you gave them a house. You endured 5 years of disrespect. You're giving them 60 days, and even offering to repay them for improvements. Trust me, the moral high ground is all yours. On the 8th day, a text finally came from Robert. Can we talk? Alone. We met at a small coffee shop downtown, neutral ground. He looked terrible, dark circles under his eyes, his shoulders slumped. Gone was the polished accountant. What I saw was the uncertain boy I once dropped off at his first day of high school. Vanessa's moving out, he said after we got our coffees. She's staying with her sister until she finds a place. I raised an eyebrow but stayed quiet. She wants me to fight you. Her brother-in-law is a real estate attorney. He says we could drag this out for years. Robert stared into his cup. But I told her I won't do it. Why not? I asked, keeping my tone calm. He looked up at me, eyes tired but clear. Because you're right. His eyes finally met mine, tired, red, and empty. I let it all happen, I thought. I stood by while she treated you badly, while she pushed you away. I saw it, and I did nothing. My throat tightened as the words circled in my head. Why, Robert? For years I kept asking myself, why did you let her treat me that way? He rubbed his face, looking much older than his 38 years. I was scared of losing her, he admitted quietly. After Dad died, I watched you struggle. I promised myself I'd never be that helpless. And when I met Vanessa, she seemed so sure of herself, so in control. I thought that meant safety. He let out a bitter laugh. Turns out I just traded one fear for another. And now, I'm looking for a 2-bedroom apartment while my wife decides if she wants to stay married to a man who won't sue his own mother. He shook his head. Tyler keeps asking when he can come home. He doesn't understand why we're fighting or why Grandma isn't in the garage apartment anymore. My chest ached for my grandson. He can see me anytime. Robert, you know that I do, he said, straightening up, a little strength coming back into his voice. That's actually why I wanted to talk. I want to bring Tyler over this weekend. I need your advice on something else. That something else turned out to be a small, 3-bedroom ranch, just 3 miles from me. It needed work, but the foundation was solid, and the roof was new. Robert had a viewing that afternoon. It's all I can afford if Vanessa and I don't work things out, he said. I wanted to know if it's worth it. I knew what he was really asking. He wanted to rebuild, and he wanted my blessing to start. The house was a good choice. Outdated kitchen, yes, but nothing that couldn't be fixed. As we walked through the empty rooms, I found myself talking about paint colors, new cabinets, and even suggested Tyler take the bedroom with the big bay window because of the morning light. Robert nodded, jotting down notes on his phone. Then he asked softly, "Would you come over sometimes? Help me make it a home." The words hung in the air, heavy with all the years we'd lost. "I'd like that," I said after a pause. "But Robert, understand this, I'm not moving back into a garage apartment. Not yours, not anyone's. I'm building my own life now." He nodded, then asked, "What about our old house? What are you going to do with it?" "I haven't decided yet," I said honestly, "but whatever I do, it won't be about punishing you or Vanessa. It'll be about creating something meaningful." As we left, his phone buzzed over and over. Vanessa's name flashed across the screen. He silenced it. "She found out I'm house hunting. Thinks it means I've given up. Have you?" I asked. He looked at me with eyes so much like his father's. "I've given up pretending. That's different." Driving back to my hotel, I realized something had shifted. For the first time in years, my son was really seeing me not as a burden or someone to be managed, but as a person with wisdom worth listening to. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. 3 weeks later, I moved into a furnished apartment downtown, while I figured out what to do with the old house. The new place was modern and sleek, nothing like the warm home I'd built over decades. Still, it felt freeing, like a blank page. One afternoon, as I unpacked my third box of books, the phone rang. "Mrs. Wilson, this is Helen Martinez. I used to teach Tyler in kindergarten." Of course, I remembered Herkind eyes, no nonsense attitude. "Hello, Mrs. Martinez. What can I do for you?" "Please, call me Helen. And, well, this is a little awkward. Tyler shared what happened between your son and daughter. The whole class heard about it during share time." I closed my eyes, imagining my grandson telling 25 little kids that his grandma took her house back. "Kids never hold back." "I hope it didn't cause too much of a disruption," I said gently. "That's not why I'm calling." She hesitated. "I'm also the director of the Westside Community Center. We're losing our building next month. Our landlord is selling to developers. We serve more than 60 seniors with meals, activities, and support. I've been searching everywhere for a new space, and Tyler mentioned, you have a house you're not using." I sank down on the half-unpacked couch. "You want to use my house as a community center?" "Just temporarily," she said quickly. "Until we get new funding, we can pay some rent." "Honestly, Mrs. Wilson, it would be a lifeline. These seniors have nowhere else to go." I thought of my empty house, sitting quiet and unused. I thought of the loneliness I'd felt in that garage apartment, and for the first time, I wondered if maybe that house was meant for more than just memories. The loneliness that had almost broken me felt far away now. "Helen, I think we should meet in person to talk about this," I said. 2 days later, we walked through my house together, and for the first time, I saw it with fresh eyes. The formal dining room Robert and Vanessa never touched could become a meal service area. The big living room, perfect for group activities. The upstairs bedrooms could be turned into offices and private counseling spaces. "We could start with 3 days a week," Helen said, her voice full of excitement. "Our main programs are meal service, health checks, and social activities. Most of the people we serve are over 70 and living alone." I nodded as she spoke. And for once, the house didn't feel so heavy or empty. The rooms that had been left hollow by Robert and Vanessa's hurried packing now seemed to come alive with possibilities. "I'd like to volunteer," I heard myself say. "I'm a retired nurse. I could help with the health screenings." Helen's whole face lit up. "That would be wonderful. We're so short on medical volunteers." That same afternoon, I called my lawyer, Diana, to draft a short-term lease. By the next Monday, the Westside Community Center had a new home and I had a new purpose. My first day volunteering was nothing like I expected. The seniors walking through the doors, some leaning on canes or walkers, weren't fragile or helpless the way I'd imagined. They were lively, outspoken, and full of stories. "Blood pressure's a little high today, Frank," I told a barrel-chested man in his 80s. "That's because Esther's wearing that blue sweater again," he teased, winking at an elegant woman setting up card tables. "Gets my heart racing." I laughed out loud, a laugh that felt rusty but real. At lunch, I sat with a group of women ranging from 65 to 92, friends who'd been meeting at the center for years. "So, you're the one who took back her house," said Mabel, the oldest, her sharp eyes twinkling behind thick glasses. Good for you. My son tried to make me sign over my condo after my Harold died. I told him I'd haunt him if he even brought it up again. The table burst into laughter. My daughter wanted me to move in, added Gloria, a retired librarian. Sounded nice, until I realized they just wanted free childcare. 20 hours a week. At 7, as they swapped stories, some heartbreaking, some funny, I realized I wasn't alone. The isolation I'd felt wasn't just mine. These women had all faced children who saw them as either burdens or babysitters, not as women with lives of their own. The secret, Mabel said, patting my hand, is to remember you matter. Your life doesn't end when your kids grow up. It just changes. By the end of that first day, I had 6 dinner invitations, a book club suggestion, and an offer to join their weekly poker game, though Gloria warned me it wasn't for the faint of heart or the light of wallets. That night, as I locked up the house, my house now buzzing with purpose, I realized I'd found something I never expected. A community that saw me, valued me, and welcomed me. On my drive home, I called Robert. The house is going to be a community center, I told him. At least for now. There was silence on the line while he absorbed it. Then he said softly, I think Dad would have approved. For once, we were completely in agreement. The center thrived. Within 3 weeks, attendance had doubled as word spread. What started as 3 days a week quickly grew to 5. New programs popped up almost daily: chair yoga, computer classes, even a memory cafe for people with early dementia and their caregivers. One afternoon, while I was checking blood pressures in what used to be my son's bedroom, Helen rushed in, her face pale. Margaret, there's someone from the city outside. A building inspector. He says we need a commercial permit. My stomach sank. The inspector, a thin man holding a clipboard, looked almost apologetic as he handed me a notice. A resident reported your operation. This property isn't zoned for commercial use. You'll need to shut down until the permits are approved. How long will that take? I asked. 3 to 6 months, minimum. After he left, Helen dropped into a chair, her face stricken. We can't close for 6 months. Some of our people depend on us for their only hot meal of the day. I already knew who had reported us. That evening, Robert called and confirmed it. Mom, did Vanessa contact the city? Yes, I said quietly. How did you know? She left her laptop open when she came to pick up more of her things. I saw the email. His voice was tight with anger. She's determined to make this as hard as possible for you. For me, Robert. This isn't about Vanessa, or even about the house, I said. There are 60 seniors who just lost their gathering place again. The line went quiet for a moment before Robert spoke. What can I do to help? His offer caught me off guard. Do you know anyone in the zoning department? I asked. No, he admitted, but I know who does. My firm handles accounting for half the developers in this city. Let me make some calls. The next morning, Tyler came to visit the center for the first time. Robert had signed him up for a day camp nearby and arranged for me to pick him up. When we walked through the front door, Tyler's eyes went wide. Grandma, what happened to the living room? He asked. It's a gathering space now, I explained, pointing to the circle of chairs where a grief support group had met earlier that morning. And where's the TV? He glanced around the old entertainment room, now filled with card tables and board games. We don't need it anymore, I told him. We talk to each other instead. Tyler considered this, then nodded seriously. That's better anyway. Dad says screens rot your brain. I introduced him to everyone, smiling as he shook hands solemnly with each senior, answering their questions with the blunt honesty only a 7-year-old can manage. My mom and dad don't live together anymore, he announced to Frank at the lunch table. Dad says they're taking a pause to reassess priorities. Frank nodded as if this were perfectly reasonable. Smart. I should have reassessed before my 3rd marriage would have saved me a fortune in alimony. Tyler helped serve lunch, carefully carrying pitchers of water, and by afternoon had organized a checkers tournament against 4 seniors in their 80s who showed him no mercy. Your grandson is something special, Helen said, watching Tyler explain his strategy to Mabel, even after she beat him handily. Yes, he is, I agreed, my heart swelling. Despite everything, Robert was raising a kind, resilient boy. That evening, as I drove Tyler back to Robert's new apartment, he asked the question I'd been dreading. Are you mad at my mom, Grandma? My grip tightened on the steering wheel. It's complicated, sweetheart. Dad says she made bad choices because she was scared. Scared of what? I asked gently. Of not being enough, he said, staring out the window. I thought about Vanessa, her perfect hair, her endless redecorating, her desperate climb up the social ladder. Maybe Robert was right. Maybe she was scared of never measuring up. Fear makes people do terrible things sometimes, I said. But everyone makes mistakes, Tyler. What matters is what we do after. When I dropped him off, Robert was waiting at the door of his new apartment. It was small, sparsely furnished, but already full of Tyler's artwork and a few plants in the windows. The zoning board called, Robert said after Tyler ran inside. They're expediting our case. We should have an answer by Friday. Thank you, I said, meaning it. He nodded, then hesitated. Mom, Vanessa wants to talk to you. My body tensed. About what? She wouldn't say, just that it's important. He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit he'd had since he was a boy. She's not contesting the divorce anymore. She signed the papers yesterday. The news stunned me. I'd expected her to fight until the bitter end. I'll think about it, I said, leaving myself room to decide later. 3 days later, the zoning board granted us a temporary permit. It wasn't a permanent fix, but it kept the center open while we filed for the right paperwork. Helen cried when I told her. So did several of our seniors. That afternoon, a text arrived from an unknown number. Mrs. Wilson, it's Vanessa. Please meet me tomorrow at Riverfront Park, 11 a.m. I need to explain something. Come alone. I showed the message to Diana that evening. It could be a setup, she warned. She might try to record you or twist your words, or maybe she really does want to talk, I countered. Either way, I'm tired of being afraid of her. Then go, Diana said firmly. But remember who you are now. You're not the woman in the garage apartment anymore. That night, as I prepared for bed, I thought about Tyler's words. Fear of not being enough. Wasn't that what had driven me to? Fear of losing my son, fear of being alone, fear of standing up for myself. Tomorrow, I would face Vanessa. Whatever she had planned, I would face it as the woman I'd become, not the woman I used to be. The park was busy that afternoon, mothers pushing strollers, older folks walking their dogs, and office workers sneaking in early lunch breaks on benches by the water. I spotted Vanessa right away. She was sitting alone at a picnic table near the fountain, but she didn't look like the polished woman I remembered. Her flawless makeup was gone, and I could see the dark circles under her eyes. Instead of her usual designer outfit, she wore plain jeans and a simple blouse. Even her perfectly styled hair was pulled back into a ponytail. When I walked closer, she looked up, her shoulders tense. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then, she broke the silence. Thank you for coming, she said softly, without her usual sharpness. I sat down across from her, the table between us. Robert said you signed the divorce papers, I told her. She nodded and glanced at her bare hands. The huge diamond ring was gone. I'm staying with my sister in Lexington, she said flatly, like she was reading from a script. I took a job with her husband's real estate company. I'll be moving at the end of the month. That's not why you asked me here, I said. She took a deep breath. No, I asked you here because I owe you an explanation. Not an excuse, there isn't one, but you deserve to know why. I studied her carefully. She was so different from the woman I once knew. My mother was a housekeeper, she began, her voice almost drowned out by the fountain. She cleaned houses, 6 days a week, beautiful homes with things she could never afford. She died at 72, still scrubbing toilets that weren't hers. I hadn't known this. Robert once mentioned she rarely spoke about her family. I swore I would never live like her, she continued. I wanted the big house, the expensive things, the life people envied. I worked so hard to create that perfect picture, and then you were there, watching me. You didn't need to say a word, just the way Robert looked to you for approval, the way Tyler adored you. I could see it all. I was terrified you'd show them who I really was. The housekeeper's daughter playing dress-up in a life she didn't deserve. Her honesty caught me off guard. For years, I'd seen Vanessa as nothing but a villain, and now I was staring at a broken woman fighting ghosts from her past. The text message, I said quietly, the birthday party. She shut her eyes for a moment. I was showing a house to clients that day. They were a perfect family, the kind of family I wanted so badly to be. The wife asked if Tyler would be joining the kids at their neighborhood pool, and before I knew it, I was lying, telling her we belonged to the country club. After that, I couldn't have anyone at the party who knew the truth, especially you. The truth about what? That you didn't belong to a country club, I asked gently. Her voice broke. The truth that no matter how many houses I sell, how nice my clothes are, how perfectly I redecorate underneath it all, I'm still that scared little girl watching her mother come home with other people's dirt on her hands. I thought about my own mother, who had also cleaned houses. She raised me to value education and independence, not things money could buy. My mother was a housekeeper too, I said softly. Vanessa's eyes shot up in surprise. She scrubbed floors so I could be the first in my family to go to college. She wore the same dress to church for 15 years so I could afford nursing books. There's no shame in honest work, Vanessa. The only shame is forgetting where you came from. Tears welled up in her eyes. I wanted to forget. I thought if I kept climbing higher, buying more, I could escape it. But instead, I lost everything that actually mattered. We sat in silence for a long while, her words hanging heavy between us. Finally, she spoke again. I didn't come here for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve that. I came to tell you the truth, and because she reached into her bag and pulled out a large envelope, because I want to make at least one thing right. Inside was a check for $75,000 made out to the West Side Community Center. It's from the sale of my car, she explained. I thought maybe it could help with permits or renovations. Whatever you need to make the center permanent. I stared at the check, then at her. Why, Tyler told me about the seniors you help, she said softly, about the meals, the health screenings. He said it made his grandma happy to help people who don't have anyone else. I know what that's like to not have anyone else. I thought about refusing the money, about telling her she couldn't buy her way out of guilt, but I also saw the pain in her eyes, and the small spark of someone trying, maybe for the first time, to do something real. But in that moment, it wasn't really about Vanessa or me anymore. It was about the 60 seniors who now had a place to belong. I carefully slipped the check back into the envelope. Thank you, I said. This will make a difference for so many people. She nodded, then stood. I'm moving next week. I'd like to say goodbye to Tyler before I go, if that's all right. Robert said you have him on Thursdays. Of course, I told her. He's your son, Vanessa. That doesn't change because of the divorce. She gave a sad little smile. He was never really mine, was he? He's all Wilson, your grandson, through and through. As she started to walk away, something made me call after her. Vanessa, she stopped and turned. We all start somewhere. What matters is where we go next. She held my eyes for a long moment, then gave a small nod before disappearing down the path. I stood there feeling strangely hollow. For years, I had painted Vanessa as the villain in my story, but now I realized she had been playing a role of her own, driven by fears I'd never known. I pulled out my phone and called Helen. I think I'd just found out funding for the permanent zoning permit, I said. Then, after a pause, I added, and maybe something more. More, she asked. I looked out over the river, watching its steady flow toward the horizon. Yes, I said softly, a new beginning. 3 months later, the Wilson Community Center officially became ours. Thanks to Vanessa's donation and grants Helen secured, we purchased the property and set up a nonprofit. The old dining room turned into a cafeteria that served over 100 meals a day. The master bedroom became a medical clinic, where I volunteered 3 days a week alongside 2 other retired nurses. Mrs. Wilson, your blood pressure looks perfect today, I told Mabel during her checkup one afternoon. That's because Frank finally asked me to the fall dance, she said with a wink. Only took him 40 years. I laughed. At 71, I found myself busier than I had been in decades. But it was a good kind of busy. The center gave me purpose again. It gave me community. Most importantly, it gave me back the woman I used to be, the capable, caring one who had gotten lost in that garage apartment. One Tuesday morning, as I was counting medical supplies, Helen appeared at the door with an odd look on her face. There's someone here to see you, she said. He's waiting in your office. I expected Robert, or maybe Diana with paperwork. Instead, a distinguished man in his early 70s stood by the window, studying our framed mission statement. Can I help you? I asked. He turned with a kind smile. Margaret Wilson, I'm Dr. James Barrett. I'd like to talk to you about your clinic. It turned out he was a retired cardiologist hoping to volunteer. He'd heard about us from a colleague at the hospital where I once worked. We could really use your help, I admitted as I offered him coffee, especially someone with your expertise. We ended up talking for over an hour, our passion for the center bouncing back and forth like old friends. By the time he left, we'd scheduled him to start the following week, running a heart health clinic every Wednesday. This is exactly what I've been looking for, he said as I walked him out. A way to use my skills that really matters. That's what we all want, isn't it? I replied. To matter. He looked at me a moment longer than necessary before smiling. I look forward to working with you, Margaret. That evening, I had dinner with Robert and Tyler at their apartment. In just 3 months, Robert had turned the small house into a real home. Children's books lined the shelves, science projects cluttered the kitchen table, and Tyler's artwork covered the fridge. Dad says I can have a sleepover for my birthday, Tyler announced proudly as we dug into the lasagna I'd brought. Can we have it at the center? Frank said he'd teach us polka. Robert nearly choked on his water. I don't think your friend's parents would love that idea, Bati. Actually, I said, laughing. We're planning a grandparent-grandchild day at the center next month. Games, crafts, storytelling. Your friends could bring their grandparents. Tyler's eyes lit up. And cake? We can have cake, right? What's a party without cake? I teased. Later, after Tyler went to bed, Robert and I sat outside on his little patio, watching fireflies glow in the dark. Mom, there's something I've been wanting to tell you, he said, his tone serious. I'm seeing someone. I hadn't expected that. She's a kindergarten teacher at Tyler's school, he explained, a little smile tugging at his lips. We met at a parent-teacher conference last month, Robert explained, looking almost shy. Her name is Deborah. She's nothing like Vanessa. She's grounded, kind. You seem happy, I said gently. I am, happier than I've been in a long time. He hesitated, then added, she'd like to meet you. I told her all about you and the center. I'd like that, I said, and I meant it. There's something else, he continued, taking a deep breath. I've been thinking about the future, about the kind of example I want to set for Tyler. I've decided to go back to school part-time, in the evenings, for social work. I felt pride swell in my chest. Social work, that's a big change from accounting. He nodded. I want to help families like ours, people who are struggling, people who need someone to fight for them, family mediation, elder advocacy, things that really matter. You showed me it's never too late to start over. Mom, to become the person you were meant to be. I reached over and squeezed his hand, too moved to speak. When Dad died, Robert went on, I was terrified of failing. I took the safest path in everything, career, marriage, even as your son. Fear made too many of my choices. I don't want Tyler to learn that from me. He won't, I told him firmly. He's learning something much better now. Driving home later, I thought about how losing everything had somehow given us all the gift of starting again on stronger ground this time. The next morning, I arrived early at the center to prepare for our weekly health clinic. To my surprise, Dr. James Barrett was already there, setting up equipment. You're not scheduled until tomorrow, I said, helping him untangle blood pressure cuffs. I had some free time. He smiled, and, well, I wanted to ask you something. My heart gave an unexpected flutter. At 71, I had long ago assumed romance belonged to other people, younger people. Richard had been gone for 15 years, and I had quietly accepted the idea of being alone. The symphony is performing this weekend, James said. I have an extra ticket. I thought you might enjoy it. I stammered like a schoolgirl. That would be lovely. Thank you. His smile deepened, creasing the corners of his kind eyes. Excellent. Perhaps dinner beforehand. As seniors began filing in for their appointments, I caught Helen giving me a sly look. You're blushing, she whispered as we passed in the hall. Don't be ridiculous, I muttered, though my cheeks were definitely warm. That afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message, the first from Vanessa since our meeting 3 months earlier. Saw the article about the Wilson Community Center in the Herald. Congratulations, you've created something beautiful from all the broken pieces. I stared at it for a long time before replying. Sometimes broken pieces create the most interesting mosaics. I hope you're finding your way. Her response came quickly, one day at a time. Thank you for the second chance. I closed my phone and looked around at the room once known as my living room. Seniors were playing cards, reading, laughing together. I thought about James and his invitation, about Robert choosing a new path, about Tyler growing up surrounded by resilience and reinvention. One cruel text message had set this all in motion, and yet here we were. Sometimes the greatest gifts come wrapped in the most painful packages. 6 months after the Wilson Community Center opened its doors, we celebrated with a gala fundraiser. The house, my former home, was transformed with twinkling lights and flowers. Over 200 people came to support what had become a lifeline for so many. I stood near the entrance in a navy blue dress I had splurged on, my mother's pearls around my neck. James stood at my side, handsome in his dark suit, his hand occasionally resting on the small of my back, in a way that still gave me butterflies. Mrs. Wilson, a familiar voice called. I turned to see Elaine, my former neighbor, walking in with her husband. This place looks amazing. I've been telling everyone at church what you've done here. Before I could answer, I spotted Robert arriving with Deborah, the kindergarten teacher. She was petite, with a bright smile and a natural warmth that filled the room. Tyler ran ahead of them, straight toward me. "Grandma," he shouted proudly, holding up a container. "We brought cookies for the party. I helped make them." The cookies looked wonderful, and I hugged Tyler tightly as he handed them over. "Are they as tasty as they look, sweetheart?" I teased. His eyes sparkled as he asked, "Is Frank here?" "He promised to show me a new card trick." I laughed, pointing him toward the game room. "He's with Mabel and the others, but remember to say hello to everyone first. Manners, young man." Off he dashed, leaving me with Robert and Deborah. Meeting her was easy, like slipping into a comfortable chair. She asked thoughtful questions about the center, shared book ideas for the seniors, and even offered to start a reading group. I liked her instantly. Robert's gaze swept the room, his voice soft but steady. "Mom, this place is incredible. Dad would be so proud." The words hit me deep in the chest, and I smiled through the lump in my throat. "I think he would be too." The evening unfolded in a warm blur of handshakes, laughter, and music. I introduced James to guests as our volunteer cardiologist, though he had quietly become so much more to me. When Helen tapped the glass to call everyone's attention, I found myself standing in my old living room now, a stage looking out at a sea of faces. My heart swelled. 6 months ago, this was just a house, I began. Walls, floors, memories. But today, it's home again, not for one family, but for hundreds who walk through these doors looking for connection, purpose, and friendship. I paused, catching Tyler's shining eyes from the floor. Someone once tried to shut me out of my grandson's birthday party. At the time, it hurt deeply, but now, I see it was a gift. That moment pushed me to build something bigger than myself, a place for anyone who has ever felt left out. From the back of the room, movement caught my attention. Vanessa stood in the doorway, looking healthier and calmer than I'd ever seen her. Our eyes met, and with a small nod from me, she stepped inside. Relief washed over her face. I continued, voice steady. "We all face moments that can either break us or remake us. The Wilson Community Center exists because of one such moment in my life, but it thrives because of all of you who believe in second chances, new beginnings, and the power of community." Later, as the music played and people mingled, I approached Vanessa by the refreshment table. "I wasn't sure I should come," she admitted. "Robert said it would be okay, but I needed to hear it from you." I reminded her gently, "You helped make this happen. You belong here." Her eyes softened. "It's beautiful, what you've built, even more meaningful than before." Just then, Tyler spotted her. "Mom!" he yelled, sprinting across the room. She knelt, hugging him tightly, her composure breaking as tears slipped down her cheeks. When her eyes met mine over his shoulder, they were filled with gratitude, not rivalry. As the evening drew to a close, I found myself in what used to be my bedroom, now the clinic. James entered quietly, carrying 2 champagne glasses. He raised his glass. "To new beginnings," he said. "And full circles," I added. His eyes searched mine. "Seeing Vanessa tonight was that hard?" I thought about it, then shook my head. "No, the anger's gone. She was trapped by her fears, just as I was by mine." He squeezed my hand. "That's what I admire about you, Marguerite, your ability to grow, to see beyond the surface." Our relationship had unfolded slowly, with patience and honesty. At our age, love felt different, steadier, more genuine. But his next words still startled me. "I've been asked to lead a medical mission in Guatemala next spring. 3 months. They need someone to oversee care in rural communities." My heart sank, even as I smiled. "That's an incredible opportunity." He hesitated, then leaned closer. "I'd like you to consider coming with me. They need nurses too, especially ones with leadership experience. We could do this together." The thought of leaving the center tugged at me. Impossible, surely. But James was quick to counter. "Helen can handle things. And Robert said he wants to help more. Maybe this is the moment to see if what you've built can stand strong without you always holding it up." The idea of going to Guatemala scared me, but it also filled me with excitement. Before that one text message turned my world upside down, I never would have dreamed of such an adventure. Back then, my life was small, focused only on meeting other people's needs. "I'll think about it," I promised James. After the gala ended and the last guests left, I found myself in the kitchen with Robert, stacking dishes in what was now a professional kitchen, feeding dozens every day. We worked quietly, side by side, until he suddenly said, "Vanessa's taking a job with Habitat for Humanity." building houses for families who need them. I couldn't help but smile at the symmetry. That fits her, I said. She's always had an eye for homes. Robert nodded. She asked if Tyler could visit her project sites sometimes. I think it would be good for him. He placed a neat stack of plates in the cabinet, his voice softer now. She's really trying, Mom. Trying to do better. I know, I admitted, remembering the donation she'd made, the kind text, and her brave appearance at the gala. He hesitated before adding, she asked if she could volunteer here sometimes, when she's in town with Tyler. Would that be weird? A year ago, the idea would have been impossible. Now, it felt like the final piece of a circle closing. Not weird, I said with a small smile. Healing, maybe. Robert looked around the room that had once been our home, and now bustled with life. You know, he said thoughtfully, I was angry at first when you took the house back. I felt like you were punishing me for Vanessa's choices. But now I see you weren't taking something away. You were creating something bigger. I touched his arm. Sometimes we have to lose what we thought we wanted in order to discover what we truly need. Later that night, James drove me back to my apartment. I told him about Robert, about Vanessa's progress, and about Guatemala. Life never stops surprising me, I admitted, gazing out the window. At 71, I thought I knew how my story would end quiet, small, in the background of everyone else's lives. But now, I can't even imagine what tomorrow might bring. James reached over and took my hand, his boyish grin lighting up his face. That's what makes it worth living. So, Margaret Wilson, shall we have an adventure together? Under the streetlights, I felt decades younger, not because time had rebound, but because I had finally stepped fully into myself. I squeezed his hand. Yes, I said with certainty, I believe we shall. 1 year to the day after that cruel text, I stood on a small airstrip in Guatemala, watching volunteers unload medical supplies. The humid air pressed against my skin, so different from Portland's cool spring. James waved me over to join him, and a local doctor reviewing our clinic's schedule. 12 villages in 10 weeks. At 72, I was living the adventure of a lifetime. My nursing skills, though a bit rusty, were desperately needed. Every day brought new challenges, new faces, and new chances to help. I had never felt so alive. That evening, under a sky littered with stars brighter than I'd ever seen, I checked my satellite phone. A photo from Robert showed Tyler proudly holding up a volunteer certificate from the Wilson Community Center. Tyler organized a book drive for the seniors. Robert wrote, his whole class helped. They collected over 300 books. Another message from Helen Reed, center running smoothly. Board approved expansion into the property next door. Deborah's reading program has 30 seniors. Frank asked, when your back claims no one takes his blood pressure properly but you. I laughed, showing James the messages. They don't need me there anymore. They'll always need you, James said gently. But they've learned to stand on their own. That's what good leaders do. They build something that thrives even without them. The last message surprised me. Vanessa finished my first habitat house today. Handing the keys to the family made me think of you. Thank you for showing me there's more to life than acquiring things. Hope Guatemala is amazing. Tyler misses you. I sat there staring at the words, amazed at how much had changed in just a single year. The woman who had once shattered me with a cruel text was now building homes for strangers. My son, who once stayed quiet, was finally speaking up for others. My grandson was discovering the joy of helping people, and me. I had found not just purpose, but also love and partnership in a stage of life I once thought would only hold loss. Penny for your thoughts, James asked, handing me a cup of tea. I was just thinking about dominoes. I told him how one small push can set so much in motion. He nodded knowingly. Vanessa's text, exactly. If she hadn't sent it, I'd probably still be living in that garage apartment, making blueberry pancakes and trying not to be noticed. James squeezed my hand. I doubt that. Someone like you could never stay invisible. Your light is too bright. The next morning, we worked in a tiny village so remote it wasn't even on the map. I taught a young woman basic wound care skills she would use long after we left. Her eagerness reminded me of myself when I first started nursing, soaking up every lesson my mentors offered. Will you come back next year? She asked hopefully. Maybe, I smiled. Or maybe I'll send others who can teach you even more. That evening, I called Robert. The connection was fuzzy, but just hearing his voice lifted my spirits. How's Tyler? I asked right away. Missing his world-traveling grandmother, Robert laughed. He tells everyone you're saving lives in the jungle. Hardly a jungle, I teased, but we are making a difference. Robert's tone shifted, more serious now. Mom, I need to tell you something. I met with a lawyer about creating a foundation, the Margaret Wilson Elder Care Initiative. The idea is to replicate what you've done at the center in other communities. I had to sit down, overcome by emotion. Robert, it was Vanessa's idea, he added quickly. She's working with the lawyer pro bono. She says it's her way of giving back. Though honestly, we're long past needing amends. Tears welled in my eyes. I don't know what to say, just say you'll be our honorary chairperson when you come home. Of course, I whispered. I'd be honored. After we hung up, I walked to the edge of camp and watched the sun dip behind the mountains, painting the sky orange and purple. James joined me, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. Good news from home, he asked. I told him about the foundation, about Vanessa's role in it, about how something born out of pain had blossomed into something beautiful. You know what amazes me most, I said, leaning against him. A year ago, I thought my life was basically over. I was just waiting out my days, trying not to be a burden, making myself small. And now, James prompted gently. Now I know the truth. I smiled. Life doesn't shrink with age, it grows. There are no endings, just new beginnings, if we're brave enough to step into them. As darkness settled, we walked back to camp hand in hand, guided by stars older than history, yet still burning strong. Like me, I thought, old yes but still filled with fire, purpose, and love. One cruel text had once tried to push me out of a child's birthday party. Instead, it had pushed me into the greatest celebration of all my own life. That single moment of pain had set off a chain of kindness, healing, and second chances I never could have imagined. I had lost a house, but found a home in service, in community, and in my own rediscovered strength. The garage apartment was gone. Margaret Wilson, nurse, mother, grandmother, leader, friend, and yes, a woman in love, was fully here. And what a magnificent journey it had been. Before I close my story, I want to thank you for walking this path with me. If it touched you in any way, please share it with someone who needs a reminder. It's never too late to start again. Sometimes the very things meant to break us become the pieces that remake us into something stronger, brighter, and more beautiful than before. That's today's story. If it touched you, leave a like and subscribe. And don't forget, share your own life lesson in the comments below.